Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to our Entitled People, where people truly believe they can do what they want, when they want, simply because they're special. And in today's episode, guys, I know I say this a lot, but this time, you'll be shaking your heads so hard. We've got Karens running people over, messing with the wrong customers, yelling at tourists, and one op tells a story about a rich vacationing family who thought they could do whatever. They wanted only to be taught a lesson. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories. Don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So this happened this week at my daughter's job, a store where everything costs $1.25. She's a cashier. One lady came in wanting to return an open pack of batteries, claiming they weren't the right size. No problem. My daughter asked, "Can I please have your receipt?" Karen replied, "I don't have one." Unfortunately, the store policy states, no receipt, no return. Karen got upset, demanded a manager, and the assistant manager explained the same rule. No receipt, no return. Karen was livid, cursing, yelling, insisting other stores would take them back. It went on for a while. The assistant manager stayed calm, but Karen escalated. Finally, the assistant manager phoned the main manager. She sighed, then told her assistant to tell Karen to come back the next morning when she would be there and she'd handle it. That apparently enraged Karen even more. She stormed out, screaming. She never returned the next day for her ineligible refund. 2 days later, my daughter was at the register again when the assistant manager warned her, "Battery Karen's back." Karen picked up an item, checked out, and once again demanded a refund for the batteries, then threw them at my daughter's face. Batteries hurt when they hit. Agitated beyond belief, she cursed, yelled, escalated. Then she grabbed the item and bolted for the door. The assistant manager called out, "You haven't paid for that? Come back." Karen shouted back that it was an even exchange for the battery refund, still holding the batteries in her other hand. The assistant manager ran outside, only for Karen to jump into her car. So the manager snapped a photo of the license plate for police. Karen's next move? She aimed the car straight at the assistant manager, trying to run her over. The manager jumped mostly out of the way, but still got clipped badly. To say the police were called, they ran the plate, reviewed the video of Karen assaulting my daughter. We don't yet know the outcome. But for Karen, nothing good. All this for $1.25, definitely not worth jail time. At that point, it's practically attempted murder with a vehicle. And someone commented, "I once had a Karen flip her lid over a penny, so $1.25 is major cash." It was over a $3 off coupon for an item on sale at $2.99. She wanted me to pay her. The difference, even though her item was free, another person added. It's not about the money, it's about power and control. She wanted her way for the sake of making people bend to her unreasonable demands. She doesn't see others as independent humans with rights only, as NPCs, so anyone who resists must be punished. Music. So this happened back in November. After years of hearing stories, I figured I'd finally share my own. Out of the blue, my healthy, hard-working husband had a stroke. One night we were chatting, then wham, our lives changed in an instant. I called an ambulance, spent a horrific night wondering if he'd come home again. He was admitted to the stroke ward. And for the first 2 days, I was constantly back and forth to the hospital. Since it's far from my house, when visiting hours ended he was being tested. I waited at a coffee shop nearby. I know the staff. I work for myself, so I'd bring my laptop or a book. The longest I ever stayed was an hour and a half. Enter Karen and her browbeaten husband. I was answering emails, baiting family, when suddenly I heard, "You are so damn selfish, sitting here when other people need this table." At first, I wasn't sure who she meant, but she meant me. Now, sure, table hogging can be annoying, but there were plenty of empty tables. Some people had been there even longer than me. She didn't wait for me to respond, just stormed out, muttering about how selfish I was, saying she'd seen me yesterday. She didn't expect me to follow her, but I did. I was exhausted, worried, furious. She picked the wrong time, the wrong woman. I confronted her outside, asked her to repeat it to my face. Yes, I had my laptop, but the staff knew why. My husband had just had a stroke. I was still working to keep things afloat. Maybe she should mind her own business, or at least say it to my face. I'll admit, I probably shouldn't have called her a geriatric old cowbag. But I did, she screamed. I'm only 53, I replied. You're only 3 years older than me? Damn, must have been a hard life. Sorry about that. She stormed off, hurling insults. Back inside, my friend told me she's notorious. Always. Harassing students who come to study despite always getting her coffee to go. I was the first to stand up to her. Her mistake was thinking I'd take it. But I don't care anymore, and she should have known better. Do I regret mocking her looks? Maybe we should all age gracefully. But she deserved everything else. And honestly, you can't say she didn't deserve that. If you don't say rude things won't get said back. Hopefully Karen was traumatized enough to learn not to insult strangers. Also, now need to find a way to work geriatric. Cowbag into my own conversations? That's a gem of an insult. Before we move on, let me ask, have you ever unleashed on a rude person before? 'Cause I did again. I met my first real-life Karen, and I have to share it. My girlfriend and I were at a national park, resting at a gorgeous viewpoint. After a few minutes, a group of 5 arrived to take photos. We were maybe 70% out of the way. Then I heard, let's just wait until these people move. Clearly about us. I scooted back a little. No, big deal. But standing 2 feet away, she kept talking about us, like we weren't there. If these people would move, we'd get a better picture. But no, they're rude, inconsiderate. That was my breaking point, said calmly. We're just taking in the views and relaxing, Karen shot back. Well, go relax somewhere. Else, this is a spot for photos. You're ruining it. We'll wait until you're done being selfish. By then, 10 people had gathered watching her rant. I stood up and said, if you'd asked politely, I'd have moved. But calling us rude and selfish while we're right here, that's not civil. And then the kill shot. I'd been watching her. Finally, I said, your attitude is insufferable. I'm guessing that's why there's no ring on your finger. Her face turned scarlet, as if no one had ever stood up to her before. One of her friends muttered that was too far, maybe. But I ended it by saying, I just made a logical observation based on obvious evidence. The group with her just laughed, and one guy even muttered, oh crap, she's getting called out. Hopefully that moment keeps her from being an insufferable C-word to people in the future now. I'll admit this, seeing a Karen get roasted can be satisfying, but the wedding ring comment was brutal. OP may have crossed a line there. After all, you never really know. What if she'd actually been a widow who'd lost her husband? That would have been an unbelievably cruel twist. Luckily, it didn't go that way, and based on her friend's reaction, the one who laughed and said, oh, she's getting called out, it sounds like even her own circle knows how unbearable she can be. Music, anyway. This next one isn't just about a single entitled person, it's about an entire family who made themselves a public nuisance until it finally came back to bite them. For context, my sister told me this story during our summer family get-together. About a week ago, she lives a bit outside of town with her husband and their 2 black labs. Their neighbors are mostly cabin owners who aren't there often, which makes it a quiet, peaceful spot where people can relax. That peace ended in spring of 2023 when a family of 5 showed up next door. At first, my sister didn't think much of it, just your typical suburban crew. 2 parents, 3 kids, and a dog. But within a week, my brother-in-law started finding trash in their yard candy wrappers. Popsicle sticks, gas station snack, packaging. And since he and my sister take pride in their yard, they keep it spotless so the dogs can safely play. He was not happy. Eventually, he spotted the culprits, 2 boys on bikes casually tossing garbage as they rode. So he decided to handle it directly. He walked over, knocked on the cabin door, and was met by a man about 10 years older, who, in his words, looked like a sleazy used car salesman. For the sake of theme, we'll call him Kevin, my brother-in-law. Politely explained the problem, mentioning that they had dogs and didn't want them eating anything harmful. Kevin's response? He shrugged it off, saying, my brother-in-law should just keep the dogs on leashes. Then before the conversation went anywhere, Kevin slammed the door shut. From inside, my brother-in-law heard laughter and the word hick thrown around. Now, my brother-in-law is a pretty chill guy. He knows when to pick battles. So he let it slide and told my sister later that evening. She was ready to march over there and raise hell, but he convinced her to stay calm. A few days later, things escalated. More trash started appearing deeper. In the yard? If it had been deliberately thrown over the fence. He tried again, knocking on the door, but Kevin doubled down, sneering that they didn't care. They'd do whatever they wanted, and that my sister and her husband were just hicks. The very next day, my sister came home to a cop waiting at her house. Turns out Kevin and his wife had called in a false report of a dog attack. The officer, who knew my sister, quickly realized it was bogus, especially since the dogs go with her to work every day. Once that was cleared up, the cop went to have a word with the neighbors. Things calmed down for a while, but not for long. The vacationers soon began throwing parties. At first, they weren't loud, just social gatherings. But then one day, an entire trash bag was dumped in my sister's yard. That's when they set up trail cams. Within days, they caught footage of the kids and even the daughter tossing garbage over the fence. This time, the cops had solid evidence, and the family was slapped with a couple of fines totaling around $500. You'd think that would be the end of it, but no. They left for the season, only to return the following spring, this time with even more toys. A boat, to jet skis, and motorbikes. My sister and brother-in-law braced themselves and set up cameras again. The kids started tearing up the road with their bikes, revving engines and racing around while the parents ignored it. The elderly couple down the street even tried calling the cops multiple times, but Kevin and Karen always played dumb, making it a their word versus our situation. Meanwhile, the family began hoarding trash behind their cabin, which attracted pests. By July, the parties returned bigger, louder, and rowdier. They'd even made friends with some local troublemakers. The police were called 5 separate times. Warnings turned into fines, but they didn't care. Then came September. One bright afternoon, my sister returned home to see squad cars and a forestry truck outside the neighbor's cabin. She couldn't see everything through the trees, but she could definitely hear it shouting, crying kids. The works. Here's what happened. Kevin and Karen had gone into town with the kids for a fancy lunch. When they got back, their front patio door had been smashed open. Trash scattered everywhere and strange noises coming from inside. Panicked, they called the cops, convinced my sister and brother-in-law were finally retaliating. But when officers arrived, the intruders weren't neighbors at all. It was a large black bear. The couple refused to believe it at first, insisting their hick neighbors were behind it. The forestry team had to tranquilize and remove the bear before the situation was resolved, and that my sister said with a grin was karma served cold. The two clowns just would not stop. The officer explained that they kept shifting blame onto my sister and her husband, insisting things like, oh, they must have lured the bear here, or maybe they used bait to wreck our house. That's when the cops shut them down, saying if anyone had baited an animal, it was them for leaving trash everywhere. An hour later, my brother-in-law came home and got filled in on the situation. A police officer stayed while the group came and went several times, then eventually left when things quieted down. By the next morning, the vacationers had vanished. Curious, my brother-in-law slipped over to check. He found the back door boarded up, but garbage was still scattered around. Peeking inside a window, he saw the mess. Cupboards smashed, furniture shredded, the fridge door ripped clean off. It looked like Kevin and his crew gave up halfway through cleaning. Clearly that bear had an amazing time. Later, through her usual snooping, my sister discovered the visitors were only renters for the season, and the actual cabin owners had no idea what their tenants were doing. In the end, Kevin and Karen faced trouble for leaving trash out legal bear baiting. And yes, folks, that is a serious offense. On top of that, the property owner is suing them for damages. All those fines, stacked on top of legal costs, made their petty attempt to irritate my sister ridiculously expensive. As she said, justice was served by a black bear I've named Karma. Now, on to my own story. I've been with my boyfriend for 11 years since he was 15. His mother has hated me from the start, mainly because I'm Albanian and because I work as a model. In her mind, that makes me shallow, vain, and untrustworthy. For over a decade, she has spread lies, insisting I've been cheating on him, an accusation with zero basis, because I never have and never will. Last year, she tried something truly vile. She attempted to void my boyfriend's motorcycle insurance. Under my name, if he had been pulled over and arrested for riding without coverage, the blame would have fallen on me. After that, my boyfriend and I decided to cut her off. He held firm, but she refused to stop targeting me. Then came the crash. My boyfriend, who works as a motorcycle test rider, was seriously injured and needed my full-time care. His mother took this as her chance to unleash a new wave of harassment. She called me every name imaginable, including racist slurs. When I blocked her, she just made new iMessage accounts and kept at it. The worst part came one Friday night when the police showed up. They said they had received multiple reports of me abusing my boyfriend. Of course, when they saw him alive and cranky but otherwise fine, they left. I knew instantly who had made the false reports: his mother. The details the officers mentioned gave her away. That was my breaking point. I realized I couldn't keep living like this. I'm pressing charges for harassment and insurance fraud, and I'll likely sue her for damages. She mocks me, insisting I'd never dare follow through. She's wrong. I will. Part of me wonders if it makes me cruel after all. She's old, bitter, and doesn't have much life left. But her age doesn't erase what she's done. She's toxic, racist, and abusive. And she's been trying to ruin me for over a decade. So here's my question. Would I be the a-hole for taking her to court? Personally, I don't think so. In fact, I think she deserves it. She's tormented me for 11 years, and enough is enough. At the very least, I'll be filing for a restraining order. Plenty of others agree. Many say not the a-hole. Her behavior is abusive, dangerous, and unacceptable. Age is no excuse. Protect yourself. And I think they're right. She won't stop until she's forced to. I gave her warnings, she ignored them, and now it's time to take action. So what do you think? Am I justified? Because in my book, karma's already proven she's real, and this woman's about to meet her